Hey guys, Tara here from Recovering Book Hoarder, and today I am going to do a tag that Krista over at Books and Jams put together, and this is for day 13 of Vlogmas. The tag is the Book Superlatives tag, and it was really fun watching hers, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to link her channel down below so that you can go over and check out her tag as well. All right, so without further ado, here are our superlatives for the year 2020. So these are all based on books that I have read in 2020. As of today, I had 121 books to go through to determine what was going to win for each of these categories. So I had a lot to pick from. All right, so number one. Class Clown, book that made you laugh. For this one, I went with Stay Hungry by Sebastian Maniscalco, and he is a comedian. If you don't know who he is, you should definitely check him out. He has a channel on YouTube. I'll link that down below also. He is just hysterical. My mom's actually the one that introduced me to him, and I think that was during quarantine, and so he's really done a lot to help keep me laughing through everything happening this year. And his book is just fantastic. I listened to it on audio. He's the one that narrates it, and comedians that are really good at stand-up don't always translate well to the written page. However, he does. It's exactly the same as the stand-up. So highly recommend that. If you want to laugh out loud, check out Stay Hungry, the audio version by Sebastian Maniscalco. And number two, Drama Queen, book with a crazy plot. For this one, I went with Dinner List by Rebecca Searle. And this is a book about, there's a girl who, for her birthday, she always goes out to dinner with her best friend. This year, when she arrives, it's not just her and her best friend. There's also all of the people on her. If you could have dinner with someone, dead or alive, who would it be? They're all there. And that list includes Audrey Hepburn and some other people. And it was crazy. Took some twists and turns I didn't see coming. It's not one of my favorite books of the year, but it would win Drama Queen, I feel. Okay, number three, Life of the Party, hyped book. For this one, I went with The Vanishing Half by Britt Bennett, and it deserves every bit of hype that it has received. This was an absolutely fantastic book. This could have won another one of these superlatives also, because it fit several of these. This really could have been the crazy plot one also, because I felt like every time a new chapter started, I was like, what? Like, it was usually the first sentence or the first paragraph, and it like would completely throw me for a loop. It was just so surprising. And this book was so good. It was so good. And I was lucky because this was a book that was gifted to me through Krista had done a like Secret Santa kind of book exchange a couple months ago, and the person I was paired with had gifted me The Vanishing Half, and so I was very thankful for that. It was absolutely, it lived up to the hype, and I am so thankful I read it, and I will read everything that Britt Bennett puts out. All right, number four, Best Dressed, Prettiest cover. For that, I am going with The Girl Who Drank the Moon by Kelly Barnhill. This cover is gorgeous. This giant moon, the little girl with her hair blowing and looking up at it, and it's just, it's everything. The book is also absolutely wonderful and fabulous. It is middle grade, found family. It's magical. It's makes you feel so good. Lots of great quotes. It's everything that you could want. So it's not just a pretty picture. It's also a fabulous, fabulous book. Okay, number 5, most unique, out of your comfort zone. So for that, I went with Small Great Things by Jodi Pico. This was out of my comfort zone in 2 specific areas. First of all, I had always been really scared of Jodi Pico because her books are so heavy, meaning emotionally they cover really heavy things like school shootings, abortion, the Holocaust, all kinds of stuff. And this one was no different. So I should just say, so I had avoided Jodi Pico books. I had only read one, and that was My Sister's Keeper. And that had been several years ago, but I was actively avoiding her. I can't remember why I had bought Small Great Things, but I did. And the other piece of it that put me out of my comfort zone was the focus was racism. And up until that point, I was unable to recognize that I truly did live with privilege as a white female in the United States. And this book challenged that. And I read this before everything happened with George Floyd. And it put me in the right frame of mind for when everything happened with George Floyd. And has worked to completely change my perspective and help me recognize things within myself and just within the world that we're living in that need to change and we can do better. So this really took me out of my comfort zone, and only good things came from that, including putting me in the right mind frame. And then also, I love Jodi Pico. I now want to read everything that she has ever written. She's just fabulous, and she shows up again on this list. But yeah, so that would be most unique. All right, number 6, most likely to travel the world, set in another place. So for that, I went with Devil in the Dark Water by Stuart Turton, and actually just finished this one today. So this takes place on the high seas. And I have never been to sea. I've never been on a large boat. Never taken a cruise, anything like that. So this is the most likely to travel the world. Because what's more likely to travel the world than a huge ship? Ocean-faring ship. Yeah. I don't want to talk about this one too much because I'll talk about that in my wrap-up, but Devil in the Dark Water. Okay, number 7, Cutest Couple, favorite romance. So this is taking me back to the very, very beginning of the year. And for this one, I went with Rumi by Christina Lauren. And this features the couple Hollins and Calvin. And it is about... I'm not going to do well at describing this because it's been so long since I read it. However, he's a musician and he's from Australia, I believe. And he's a busker in New York City. And the girl has a crazy crush on him as a busker. And her uncle is also a Broadway producer or something like that. And has like this huge hit musical that he's currently in charge of or overseeing or whatever. And she ends up recruiting Calvin to come and work at this musical. In order to do that, he needs his green card because he's here illegally. And so they get married so that he can get his green card. They don't really know each other. And it's all about their story. And I really loved it so much. I loved these 2 characters. I loved the romance. I fell in love with him. He's just he's such a great, great character. So that would be Cutest Couple. Okay, number 8, most likely to surprise you, hidden gem of the year. So I chose, this is called Living the Mysteries by Robert H. Hoeke. I think that's how you pronounce his last name. But this is actually a book about the rosary, and it's written like a rosary. So each section is a different part of the rosary. And the best thing I can do to describe this is to say it felt like being wrapped up in a warm blanket. I adored this book. It made me fall in love with the rosary all over again. And it's just this, it's a sleeper. It's a sleeper of a book. And I absolutely adored it. So that was my biggest surprise of the year. Okay, number 9, most likely to succeed, potential to stand the test of time. Okay, with this, I picked a book that has already stood the test of time, and I think it will continue to stand the test of time. And that is The House at Pooh Corner by A.A. Milne. I had never read The House at Pooh Corner before until this year, and it's everything I hoped it would be. It's just so feel good. You gotta love the characters. I'm a huge Eeyore fan. I love Eeyore so much. I'm also a big Piglet fan. And the book was just so good. I look forward to being able to read it with my nieces whenever they get older. So it has already stood the test of time. I think we'll continue to stand the test of time. All right, number 10, most likely to be late to class, book you couldn't put down. So for me, that was In West Mills by Desean Charles Winslow. And he is a debut author, young. And this is a character-driven book. It is about a town of Black people back in I want to say, I can't reference it because I lent it to my friend Jackie. It starts out either in the late 30s or the early 40s. And it's like the town that's on the other side of the tracks. Do you know what I mean? And it's all about the people that live in this town. It follows one main character, but you really get to see into other characters as well. And that character, I want to say, is in like her early to late 20s. And then it follows her all the way through to the end of her life. And the changes that take place from when the book starts, just in America in general, and then in the lives of the characters, is just like unbelievable. Because it goes all the way through, I want to say like through the 80s. Yeah, I think it was like the late 80s. And it's just so beautifully written. And you would think something that like covers that span of time would be real long, and it was not. It was a fairly short book. Amazing characters, great setting, and I continue to think about those characters. Like, I want to read more. But at the same time, you don't feel like you're left wanting, because it does follow like throughout the lifetime. And it was wonderful. I didn't want to put it down. When I wasn't reading it, I was thinking about it, and I can't recommend it enough. I'm really looking forward to what else Desean Charles Winslow comes out with in the future. Okay, number 11, most likely to brighten your day, book that made you smile. So for this, I went with The Office, the untold story of the greatest sitcom in the 2000s, and that's by Andy Green. It is just this wonderful, big book all about the making of The Office, behind the scenes stuff. It has cameos from everybody that was in The Office and was a part of it. And as a huge fan of The Office, this was exactly the book that I wanted. So it made me smile throughout the entire thing. If you are a fan of The Office, the American version of The Office, you have got to get your hands on this book. So good. Okay, number 12, best shoulder to cry on, book that made you cry. For that, I went with The Storyteller by Jodi Pico. And this is... This is a book about the Holocaust. It's about a Nazi officer and his road to atonement, I guess is the best way to say it. Obviously, it takes place way after World War II. And there is a woman who's like in her 20s, I guess. And her grandmother had been in one of the concentration camps. And she ends up meeting and befriending a former Nazi officer. She doesn't know that initially. And dual timelines, multiple perspectives, and I ugly cried. Oh, I ugly cried through this book. Again, Jodi Pico. Oh, God. So thought-provoking. Just beautiful writing. And she just pulls things out of you as a human being that you don't even know that you're capable of having pulled out of you. But, yeah. ugly cry for so much of the book. So good. I can't. Again, you gotta read Jodi if you haven't read her. Okay, number 13, Most Opinionated, book that broadened your perspective. Again, this is a book that could have hit at least 4 or 5 of these categories here for me. And this one is Stamped from the Beginning by, I keep calling him Ibram, and that might be it. I'm not sure if it's Ibram X. Kendi or if it's Ibram X. Kendi. Either way, everybody needs to read this book. This should be required reading. It has completely changed how I look at American history, colonialism, and so much more. And I just feel like everybody should have to read this. If you think you're not racist, or you think racism doesn't exist, or you think that you don't have privilege as a white person, I dare you to come back and tell me that after you read this book. And I feel that it's written really, really well and unbiased. I feel like a truly unbiased opinion is presented. I shouldn't say opinion. It's not an opinion. Unbiased perspective, unbiased information, unbiased reporting is presented. And I also love that he gives what he feels is the best road forward. Yeah. Absolutely. Broaden my perspective. And I think everybody needs to read it. Okay, number 14, Most Unforgettable book you can't stop thinking about. Would be Kindred by Octavia Butler. That book is somewhat terrifying, thought-provoking. It makes you feel things. It's very good. So this book is about a black woman in the 70s. I want to say it's like 1976, something like that. It's her birthday, and her husband, who is white, had just moved into a new home, and they're unpacking. And next thing you know, she's gone. She disappears. And as far as her husband was concerned, she was gone for just a couple minutes, and then next thing he knows, she's back. Well, in reality, she was pulled through time into pre-antebellum. Is that what you call it? I guess it's called antebellum. The antebellum South. And she continues to get pulled back into these slave times on a plantation. At one point, her husband gets pulled with her, and it paints, I think, what is probably quite an accurate portrayal of slavery and the treatment of slaves. And like what that would look like is somebody who's alive in the 70s, as a black person in the 70s, getting pulled back into that time, and what that would be like. And it is just, oh, it's so good. I still continue to think about it, and it's been several months now since I read it, and I want to read lots more by Octavia Butler. And yeah, that would be my most unforgettable book of the year. All right, last but not least, number 15, best all around favorite book of the year. And for that, it is The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern. I love Erin Morgenstern. I loved The Night Circus, one of my favorite books of all time. And I could not wait for her to write a new one. And I kept thinking, why is it taking her so long to write a book? And then once I read The Starless Sea, I understood, because it is a book within a book, which is one of my favorite tropes. And it is fantasy. It's beautiful. I just cannot say enough about it. Let's put it this way. When I finished it, which I read the physical book, I immediately purchased and downloaded the audiobook and re-listened to it. I literally did an immediate reread. And it is just so good. I saw reviews where some people didn't like it. I don't understand. I don't understand how you could not love this book. And yeah, it is definitely my favorite of the year. She's written 2 now that I love and adore, and I can't wait for what she brings us next. It'll probably be several more years before we get another one, and I just can't wait for that to happen. I just love her books. They're so magical, and I want to live in her books. I want to live in her books, in her worlds. So yeah, that's it. Those are my superlatives. Those are my tops. I am going to tag a couple of creators down below that I would like to see do this tag as well. If you end up doing this tag, please leave your link in the down below so that I can take a look at it, check it out. What are your thoughts? Have you read any of these? Do you think I'm totally off base with some of my choices? Let me know. Do you agree with some of my choices? Talk to me down in the comments. All right, guys, I will see you tomorrow. Bye.